Hey, how's it going? I'm Dan Fradenburgh, and this is Chess with Investors. I'm joined today with Sam Sells. How you doing today, Sam?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm lucky enough to start off with white, so I've already done my first move. It's going to give you like 30 seconds or something to do your first move, but we've got a 15-minute game here with 10-second increment, which means that you do have at least 10 minutes to think for any of your move. But before we get too excited, let's talk about real estate a little bit. Sam, you want to introduce yourself a little bit to the audience?
Yeah, Sam Sells, founder of Impact Growth Capital. We've just recently launched a $300 million Impact Growth Fund. It's a social impact fund focused on affordable housing that partners with our nonprofit Halo of Hope Foundation with wraparound services for our residents to, help those most vulnerable populations have a safe, clean place to live.
I love that. I love that. And as far as the states that it focuses on, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, cool, yeah. So now we can wait as long as we want here. As far as the states you guys focus on, whereabouts are those?
Yeah, so we have stuff in 7 states, but right now the fund is focused on Texas, Las Vegas, and Oklahoma.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. And you've already been on the Chance Encounter podcast series that I do. Just so you in the audience, if you don't know what's going on with that, we're real estate people, but of course this is the internet, so you always have to be doing something unusual to get the internet algorithms to pay some attention to my wild schemes here. But the Chance Encounters, they're all featured on dandoesdeals.com. And the thing that I think is a little bit unique about it is that I really try carefully to I want to establish with my different colleagues in the real estate circle that I don't want to write a blank check for anybody's time, and what better way than to, rather than have a typical podcast where you say, it's like, okay, tell me about that time when you were 8 years old and your bicycle got stolen and it was very, very traumatic. Instead, we focus on, what's your buy box, like what a unit count, core competency that you're looking to contribute, what's the size of deals you're really looking to do. And that's how I get to know each other, and it just helps that it also is good for SEC compliance in a 506B. So we've already done that part there, but why don't you tell me a little bit more? So it's like, what sort of size of affordable housing projects are we talking about here, Sam?
Yeah, so we have a 324 unit apartment complex that we're building in Las Vegas, Nevada, that has about $5.3 million worth of grants and subsidies that have been set up for that. Includes about, my goodness, I think we're getting close to having 90 units pre-leased before we even strike the ground, which is just, of course, fantastic. You're getting a little sneaky on me, aren't you?
Yeah, honestly, like, this is the craziest game. Like, chess is an infuriating game. It's so difficult. Oh, interesting. Okay, it's so hard to stay focused when somebody's trying to klepto all your pieces. And Sam, have you ever seen that show on YouTube called Hot Ones, where they eat the spicy chicken wings while they're doing the interview? Have you ever seen that one?
Yes, I have.
Right. So that's part of what I was thinking. Of course, it gets really, really awkward when the person's in pain and having trouble breathing and all that kind of stuff. But I find it's difficult to stay civil when, especially if you have a competitive streak, which I'm definitely guilty of that. There's no two ways about it. But Sam, you're also ex-military, if I recall. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Exactly. So did you find competitiveness was a big part of that experience, or I know that lots of people get different things out of their experience with the military. If you want a suggestion, I recommend blocking with your knight instead of with your queen, and those are the only two legal moves that I see here. Oh, sorry, no, you could also block with your bishop.
Yeah, I'm curious. why it's not allowing me to do something, but
Yeah, it's because you're in check there is the reason. But yeah, so there you go. So now you can scoop up that bishop. Okay, that'll work. And then now, how do I want to do this? Yeah, I think I'm going to stop that threat to my knight like that. But yeah, so there you go. Well, why don't we say a thing or two about your military experience, if you
yeah.
don't mind?
17 years in the Air Force, got a little bit early retirement. Spent better part of 11 years in global health, working with foreign militaries, foreign governments. It's called the regular warfare, but it's really about helping host nations build, create sustainable um, healthcare system. So whatever that looked like is what we worked on. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Also did during that time had a great opportunity to do a fellowship with USAID, and I was able to be a part of the Ebola response. Um,
Excellent, excellent. I always like speaking to people who are on that side of military efforts. One thing that I don't entirely wear on my sleeve until like I'm actually getting to know people. But if I were to think of like a religious denomination that I tend to mostly identify with, I'd say it's Buddhism for the most part for me. And so the thing about that is like having more and more effective ways to for violence and stuff like that. That's not something that I find particularly appealing. But you can't ignore the fact that war is going to happen. As far as the way like we're wired as humans. And so just because of that, like if you really want to do a lot of good in the world, I do think it's important to put yourself out there and help people. And I think that that's a big thing that like when people are out there and supporting. I imagine you probably have some Christian background, like the thing from Jesus about turning the other cheek. I always interpret to mean that if somebody hits you on this cheek, you should show them the other one to show it's like I'm not the person you think I am. I'm not your enemy here. There's some sort of misunderstanding. Let's have a cup of tea, talk it over, and see how we can solve it. And I think that helping through medicine, I think, is a great way to do it. Does that resonate with you? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
yeah, so one of the tenets of really of what we're doing and have been doing um, is really getting after creating sustainable systems, right? And when a country can support itself, when a country can operate, then they have less violence and they'll have less crime. And I've been able to take those lessons learned and bring that into commercial real estate. So, what does that look like? What the heck do I mean by that? There's, I guess I've only got a few choices here. So, when we take on
I guess I should emphasize that I'm not a pacifist when it comes to chess, though. It's like my only, it's my only exception in that case. But sorry, you were saying?
well, I'm going to be embarrassed here in a second. And one of those things is, oh, there we go. Is I was confused which one was my queen and which one was my king. And now that I know, I'm playing those a little bit differently, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we can have this was a warm up, right? You can, yeah, exactly.
So when you take on let's say you take on an apartment complex that's been distressed, the reason it's distressed is just like the reason why a country is distressed. It's distressed because um, because of ownership or leadership. And I'm not sure why I just did that, but that was the wrong direction. Can I change that?
Well, it is attacking my pawn that has no backup. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I just want to let that guy die or not. But yeah, I guess I will, because I think I'll go over and whack that bishop over there. Yeah, I think that's the fundamental wisdom of the founding fathers, and how they and I am talking about America specifically when they talk about the emphasis on property rights, which is that if you've got, like a horse in a race, you've got some sort of stake in the game, then you're it does make sense to play by the rules, for lack of a better term. Whereas if you feel like a bystander in society, then I don't think it will make sense to play by the rules, and so resorting to violence or thuggery in general, then it's going to make more sense. So was that your observations abroad in places that were, what do you want to call it, tumultuous?
Well, when the system itself is corrupted, when the incentives are misaligned, then you end up creating perverse incentives that further, create desolation and scourge, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is tragic to think about. Let's see here. Yeah, I could do that. I guess, yeah, I don't want to get that in the game. But my knight's pretty locked up over here, so we'll have to get this one on here. But that's some that's some fascinating insight, and that's. Ever since I was a teenager, one of the books that I remember one of my history teachers encouraged me to read was Plato's Republic, and I remember, and even to this date I haven't finished it, and actually only recently I heard a summary of some of the later chapters, and like, honestly, it does have some problematic parts near the end, which is like one of the biggest ones is he encouraged, like Plato through Socrates' voice, encouraged people to not be around their children, basically give the society the ability to raise their children for them. And I can't agree with that, not even for 1 second. But the part that did resonate with me was the part where Socrates was talking to the older guy, I forget his name, and saying that he's always eager to speak with older people because they've been on a path which I'm sure to take, and I'm eager to know if the path is, rocky or, whatever it was. It was something to that effect. And so that's one thing I've always tried to put a lot of effort into, is anybody who's done things that I have zero experience around, I shut up and listen. And so that's why, like I've lived abroad, which I think is a fantastic experience, because you're going to find out culturally and otherwise the things that you expect are universal. They're absolutely not. And then some things that you didn't think, or were thought were just a part of your society and nobody else's, you'll find that you're wrong on that one as well. My main reason for moving to Taiwan originally was, and I lived there for 15 years, was the idea that you don't know who you are unless you also know who you're not. And I think that one of the surprises I had from that experience was that I have a lot more in common with many parts of Taiwanese and Asian culture in that way than I share with a lot of people where I'm from. and maybe it's a like a pragmatic, like a pragmatist thing that they have, like where just put in the effort and you'll learn things, and just like being hopeful that suddenly a skill is just going to dawn on you with no actual work. It's just not realistic. Like that's some examples, but what are some of your own experiences or mantras, things that motivated you, or maybe a thing or two that you saw abroad that really solidified those views that are huge for you?
You know, um, one of the big shaping experiences for me was when we've been working with this Afghan colonel for, I mean, 6 years of advisors have been working with him. And this is medical side. He's in charge of all the provinces of the north. And we're sitting there, and I'm just thinking about like all the blah, blah, blah that people have been coming to, all the tea that has been drunk, all the incentives have been thrown at him. Like it just never mattered because it was always an American solution. And American solutions are not the answer to all the world's problems, right? And Americans like to think that way. There's a great book called The Ugly American, which really does a fantastic job of addressing this. So I'm sitting there listening to him, and he's talking to my colonel, and they're doing the same thing. And my colonel's trying valiantly to get this guy to do something. And this voice in my mind, I just remember it just said align his incentives. It's like, Sam, align his incentives. And so I started thinking about incentives that we could possibly align, and it came to me. So I said, hey, um, Colonel Sajadi, whatever his name was, what would happen if um, what would happen if you started supporting your clinics across the north, all 9 of them. So right now on your Tashkil, on your a roster, you have, you're only, you have a fraction. You have like 40% of the people that you're supposed to. So if you got the rest of the people, that would mean you would have over 1,000 people. And he's like, yes. I said, okay. Now, if they're only getting 60% of all the materials that they're supposed to get, so if they got all the materials, you would have over $10 million worth of supplies. He said, yes. All right. So is your position as a colonel applicable if you had over 1,000 people and over $10 million worth of supplies, or is that a position of a general? And he sat there and thought about it. He's like, that's a general's position. And I'm like, so they would have to promote you to be a general. Yes. Bing, bing, bing. Like that, just a light bulb went off in his head. So all these people trying to get him to, like, we're going to give you more stuff and blah, 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 and help your people and be a good, all these clinics and hospitals could be saving all these lives. Like he didn't give a crap about saving people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
I did. My colonels did. He didn't. And so here we are trying to give him this American solution, and he's got these warehouses full of supplies that he doesn't care about. But once he realized that if he actually received the gifts that were trying to be given to him, that he could get promoted and make a lot more money and have more power, like it was the flip of the switch. That week, all of a sudden, like I've had my interpreter, I'm like, reach out to the clinics and see if anything's happened since we just had our conversation, which we've had a bunch of conversations with that guy. All of a sudden, like, they're like, what just happened? I don't know what you did, but all of a sudden, like, we have trucks coming our way and we have supplies, and I'm going to get like my 100 people that I've been asking for. And it was all about incentives. And so once I learned about that, when I went back and I was building hospitals and clinics in West Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa and Southwest Asia and Southeast Asia, I used that exact principle of how we align incentives with the host nation, with the leader,
Mm-hmm.
to create success. Now, there came a point in my life where I'm like, I am traveling almost out of the country almost every single month of the year, and I've got little kids now. And my life, I need to be home. So how do I create a company that creates impact, makes a difference in the world, like I have been doing for my entire career, but does so in a way where it's sustainable? And it really comes back to like, how do we make people money?
Hmm.
How, like, Dan, if I could tell you that you could double your money and you're going to help people find homes and you're going to help homeless veterans and you're going to make a huge difference, and oh, by the way, you're going to double your money, you're like, wait a minute, I can double my money. So that's the big check. And I get to live a life of meaning and make a difference in other people's lives. Like that makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that comes to my mind is that I think it's so important to look past the surface, because the thing is with your story there, like maybe it was ego and the impression for the parents. Maybe it was the person's spouse, and the spouse was saying, "Oh well, you need to be making more money, so we can have even more children," or whatever it was. Maybe they're just a narcissist and they're just eager to have a story that's really, really good. Like there's lots of different. I'm interested to know, like with that specific case, which of those were the buttons. And I understand that you don't really know for sure most of the time with people, but man, what a fascinating story. As far as how to make a big difference, it's just so human, and it makes so much sense. That's really, really fantastic. But
It can be impossible sometimes to figure out what really motivates people. It depends on how honest they are. And I, with like that guy, I just knew he was corrupt. I knew the system that he was in was corrupt, and I knew that at the end of the day, he had to protect himself
Mhm.
because that's a system. Like he couldn't rely on the system, and so he had to protect himself. And the way you do that is by money and power. And the more money and power you have, the more protection you have from those around you, right?
Yeah.
In America, we don't really have that concern. Money is still a motivator, but it's not the only motivator. Um, we've lived for generations in America where the biggest thing to do was to get a job, elevate, become a president or senior vice president or a partner or whatever. And that's all that mattered. And then come home and take care of your family. And we're posing that maybe that's not all that matters. Maybe living a life of meaning actually does matter. And you see social impact, you see that is on the rise big time. Like people really, really care now about doing something different than what their parents did because their parents were fed a different story. And so we're trying to create our own story where we make a difference in the world. And I intend to do that, not just by $100,000 difference, $1 million difference, or $1 billion difference. We want to tens of billions of dollars into affordable housing, and we want to, help a million lives. Like how can you be a part of something like that? You're not going to do that by investing in the stock market.
Hmm.
That's just a pure financial return.
Hmm.
What
Hmm.
and that gives you no meaning. There's zero meaning in that.
Right, right. Yeah, I agree. And I think that honestly, like there's so much emphasis in society on supporting the military, but like so much of it, I think it's not that, like I think it's writing a check that it bounces.
Yeah.
Like I really think it's like, oh well, we really value your service or something like that, and it's like, okay, well, you value it enough to thank people for their service, but you don't really value it enough to actually tighten your belt a little bit, or actually make sure that like you don't have the homeless problem with veterans that is very prevalent, and also not addressing the fundamental reasons why it's going on. It's so inspiring to speak to somebody like you, where you are connecting the dots, and you're really showing it's not just as simple as the American military are a bunch of hired grunts, and who go out and like there's some warlord who has deep enough pockets to get America involved. It actually is areas that there is a path to things getting better, and there are people whose hearts are in the right place. I think that's really, really fantastic, and I'm enjoying this immensely.
You know what? The reason why veterans go homeless is an experience that I had as a veteran. I was planning on 20 years, 20 plus years. I had was enlisted originally and then became an officer. I had a career in front of me. I got that call saying, "Hey, come down and try out for these team, the special things that you just never ever get. That's so rare." Um, and I was having some medical issues and had to get out. But when you get out, all of a sudden your meaning has evaporated,
Right.
and
Right.
all of a sudden you've given your life to your country and so forth. And when you're out of the military, you're out. It's like you were in a special club, and now you're not.
Yeah, like taking your like a different family away from you all in one shot. I think there are many different manifestations of what like for women they talk about postpartum disorder. And I think that shows its head in so many different ways, and it's not really, like addressed. Like one that I had, which of course is to a much smaller degree, would be things like writing my first book. It's like, okay, well, that is now out there, and so now what? This was something that was in very very important to me, and now it's like, okay, well, that's all buttoned up. What's next? And of course, I'm like, it's clearly a more profound experience when you're talking about, this camaraderie. Like you'll frequently hear people in the military talking about how they'd literally be willing to die for their brothers and sisters in the armed forces. And I think if you're going to get your head around it as a civilian, you really have to. You really have to put yourself in that position and say, like, okay, well, what would it take? What kind of relationship would you have to have before you'd be willing to make that sort of sacrifice? Does that resonate at all with
It
you? Or
it does, and when you get out of the military, it's very easy to become empty.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you lose that sense of purpose. You lose that sense of meaning, and you go get a job, a W-2, and because it's what happened to me. Like I had went to go work for Deloitte as a consultant. Awesome gig, dinners and nice cars and fancy, awesome people and all this stuff and things. But at the end of the day, like I remember looking over the cubicle at other people. I was in downtown LA working in the Deloitte Tower, and I just thought, no one here gives a crap if
right.
I show up or not.
Mhm. Mhm.
At the end of the day, everyone's just trying to make a buck and go home.
Yep. Yeah, it's their motivations are not in that cubicle at all. They're elsewhere, and they're going through the motions, punching in their clocks, making sure that they have something to show to justify their paycheck, and that's and no more, no less. It's really the norm. But you are heavily active on LinkedIn, such as same as myself. I'm fortunate to have this really distinct last name. It makes me easy to find, and that's where I spend most of my social media time. Sam, is that the best space to reach out to you, or is there a website that's better? How should people reach out?
Yeah, so great. Now, if you've enjoyed watching me get obliterated in chess while I'm trying to talk and think and everything else, please reach out to me if this message resonates. You know what? I can have meaning and make a difference and make money at the same time. Like you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Samuel Sells. That is my last name. It's a verb. It's also my name is a complete sentence, and it also happens that every real estate agent likes to put sells at the end of their stuff, and so there's like a bazillion different real estate agents trying to steal my name from me. But long story short, yeah, you can reach out there. You can also head over to impactgrowthcap.com for our company, Impact Growth Capital. We got the Impact Growth Fund, which is impactgrowthfund.com. We're raising $300 million for affordable housing. We've already got some incredible investors in there. We've got, one of my partners is the former head of Apple real estate. He's built every Apple store on the planet, or almost every Apple store on the planet. So we've got big names, big people behind us, and we're just really motivated by a mission to make a difference and make money in the process.
That's absolutely fantastic. And then I have to add my public service announcement, which of course it's a little bit tongue in cheek. But if you've been watching this episode and you've been experiencing searing pains in your eyeballs, maybe like migraine-like symptoms, I'm confident it's because of the downright hideous subscribe button that's just down there that you can hit for free and just get out of your life. And full disclosure, the reason why I bug people to hit it is because those deadbeats at YouTube will actually start paying for these videos if enough people hit it. The trade-off to you is that if enough people click on it, then basically my videos will show up on their list of suggestions. You can feel free to ignore those suggestions. You can see more episodes like this on chesswithinvestors.com, or they'll just show up on your channel that way. But you can go ahead and ignore them because, quite frankly, I just appreciate the fact that you spent this time with me. Just like Sam, I think this has been a really, really meaningful interview. That was really, really fun. It's always great to see somebody who's cool and collected, even when things aren't going their way, which is one of the hidden motivations of this show. But thanks a lot for joining. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with the audience before we give them back their day?
Dan, thanks for your time. Everyone else, thank you for your time. And regardless, make sure you live a life of meaning so that emptiness goes away and you find joy and peace, and you can, show up for your family, for your kids, for those around you, in just an incredibly powerful way.
Cool. I love it. Thanks for that, Sam. Awesome.
Does nothing but put more money in the pot.
Right.
If we talk about just the investor side, Shane talked about the sponsor side a little bit. I'll talk about the investor side. Okay, so you want the most money in terms of return with the least risk. All right, you want to do it yourself, you can go get 13 or 14%. You're going to do all the underwriting, it's not going to be passive.
If you bet, probably not.
I think I'd have to bet at least $2,500 before they fold.
And the pot is
4,000.
4,000. Yeah, I think you're right, but I'd rather just check.
Okay.
First position, you have the right of collection and the right of foreclosure or sheriff's sale, wherever you're at.